and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor and take the flag. One state, under God, one community.
Please remain standing for prayer.
Dear God, we come before you today. We humble ourselves before you. We ask for your guidance. We ask for your wisdom. We ask that our behavior, our words, our actions, our thoughts would all glorify you. We ask for you to give us the wisdom to make decisions that are beneficial to this community. We know that we are in hard times in some ways. We need to provide services. We need to be mindful, though, of the residents who are paying the taxes that fund these services. So it's a careful balance. So let us be wise. Let us be open to hear the folks that have come to speak today. And let us choose wisely. We thank you for the recent rain. We thank you for providing us with a new HR director. And we thank you for the support that we receive from this community. And we thank you especially for the salvation offered through your son, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Here. Thank God.
Yes, you are.
Commissioner Casterline,
Here.
Commissioner Russo,
Here.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Here.
Judge Garza.
Here, we're all present and we have a full quorum. Are there any last minute sign-ins? Nope, we have nobody who wants to talk and citizens to be heard. We have no presentations and proclamations. We're going to move on to the consent agenda.
Move for the approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. I want to recognize a couple of donations. We have a donation of $1,053 from the Lamar Women's Club. It's for Aransas County Animal Care. We've got a donation of $500 from an anonymous citizen, and it is for Aransas County Animal Care. And we've got a donation of $1,000 from an anonymous citizen for Aransas County Animal Care. If there's any further discussion, if not, let's go and vote.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye, passes 5-0. Move on to item number 8.
I move to approve order O-18-2023. An order calling for a special election to be held November 7th, 2023. For the purpose of adopting or rejecting the proposed constitutional amendments as submitted by the 88th Legislature regular session of the state of Texas and the 88th Legislature second special section of the state of Texas and providing notice of this election.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. We have Mr. Kevin Stroud here to speak on this. Morning.
I'll answer any questions if we have any.
What else is going to be on the ballot?
So there's 14 statewide propositions to amend our state constitution.
Okay. Anything that's of earth shattering?
That would depend on what your
Well, no, I
opinion of
understand
the
that.
shattering is, but
Yeah.
I do expect maybe proposition
Yeah.
4 would bring out a large crowd. That is for changes to school board taxes. Or school district taxes.
And you were saying you will have these posted on your website
Yes.
after
so-
we vote on this today.
Yes, so some explanatory statements and the actual full text of the propositions we posted on our website. And those are provided by the Secretary of State.
Okay, and I appreciate your giving us a summary of those
Mhm.
proposed amendments.
All right, there's no further questions.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye, passes 5-0. Item number 9.
I move to approve without conditions, request for variance from the requirements set forth in the Aransas County Floodplain Management Order number 0232019, Article 4, Section F, subsection 1A to allow fill and slab on grade construction at 1515 Cape Valero Drive.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Good morning. Let's
Good
come on.
morning.
Kat, would you just real quickly explain why y'all are recommending this?
Because of the location of this lot, there is infrastructure that would reasonably be expected to protect against scouring. The homeowners are fully informed about different types of foundations and why this was recommended to the county by FEMA for a coastal high hazard to have open foundation. However, because of the layout of Cape Valero and the layout on the floodplain maps and where the limit to moderate wave action line is, I would like to come back to the Commissioners Court to consider an amendment on the order that would allow for in the future homeowners to make the decision without the variance request. But staff is it's not a request to build lower. It is just a request to use structural fill and to build on a slab on grade foundation.
It's just, we've had a couple of these issues where the line kind of runs all over the place.
Yes, sir. The flood insurance rate maps that set our regulations is where we find the limit to moderate wave action line. For Cape Valero, it's not actually on the panel that people look at when they are looking for building regulations. The limit to moderate wave action line kind of follows Farm to Market 1069, which is on a separate flood insurance panel, which is one of the reasons I would like to consider, because we have had this variance come up where I believe it is justifiable to consider amending the floodplain order accordingly.
Your job's not particularly difficult. You have to do that on every single lot that's anywhere near that. You have to clear that. And it's rare that we make this exception, but we do whenever it was pretty obvious.
How high is the pad gonna be?
Based on it'll be based on the finished grade. I apologize, I don't have the ground elevations. But it would be 18 inches above the base flood elevation. It is in the 100-year floodplain. They have submitted full engineered building plans and it meets all of the requirements, save that it's a different type of design on the foundation.
What's it gonna do to the neighbors? Will they flood out the neighbors with a higher?
No, actually, it's out on Cape Valero where they built the new marina. And when they did that, they elevated all of the land with the material that came out of the marina.
Oh, so it's
So
already tall.
it's already taller than it was originally. I don't know by how much, but it's kind of, it sets up much higher than the road.
Is there any exposure to the county if this house is built and then it later suffers damage because of this exemption?
We could put into the order or put as a requirement or a condition of this approval to have a request for some sort of affidavit of understanding from the homeowner, understanding that with this variance does come that potential risk. That could be part of the condition if that was so desired by the commissioners.
I think the likelihood that we would deal with any liability is slim, but there is no reason why we couldn't ask the property owner to just acknowledge the risk and waive any liability we could possibly have and hold us harmless.
That would be good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline, Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye, passes 5-0. Item number 10.
I move to discuss and consider taking action to request that the county's Economic Development Administration contract number 08-01-0548-7 related to the Workforce Development Center located at 2000 Highway 35 North Rockport, Texas, 78382 be transferred to Del Mar College.
I'll second that.
Commissioner, on your motion, it says consider taking action. Which action would you like to take?
I'd like to,
Approve the transfer
I'd
or
like to
disapprove?
approve the transfer.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Got a motion, got a second. We got a citizen that would like to speak on this item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Judge Garza, my name is Christy Rutledge, 1411 Dana Drive. And I'm here to speak on this item regarding transferring the building to Del Mar because I feel that this is a way to back end the citizens of Rockport, the taxpayers of Aransas County, into a taxing district. I have pulled up in front of me, just so you have this in perspective, my friend's appraisal from Nueces County. And the tax on $351,000 property homestead in Nueces County for Del Mar is 26.6 cents, $700 a year. I studied the entire grant for the Del Mar Workforce Training Center. I also looked further into what kind of offerings Del Mar offers right now at their Workforce Training Center. Specifically paid attention to the budget and the cost to the taxpayer. Is this something that we need? And what I found is that there was a budget put in with the package. I feel like the grant was put together by long-term recovery just to get the grant. And I see this all the time because I deal with grants. It's what I do. They put information in there, they get the grant, and then they change it afterwards. There was a budget put in there from Del Mar that's not realistic. It's an operations budget, and it's spread out over several counties. It presumed that everyone would pay the full out of district tuition, I think around $1,800. I don't know that number exactly, for all of the workforce developed training offerings. And that's not real. Because what happens in Nueces County at their Workforce Development Training Center is they have certification classes. Some of them cost about $35, some of them a couple $100, but I didn't see one that was at that full tuition. So that budget's not real. The other thing is that budget looks out all the way to Calhoun County. Now, this commissioner's court many years ago had the wisdom to go to the state legislature and get Del Mar from stopping a law to back us into a taxing district. They need contiguous boundaries in order to have us in a taxing district. So if they were to get this property, they would immediately be in a budget shortfall, and we don't know how much because they have no money set aside for renovating this building. So I would predict that very soon we would be faced with an election for a taxing district. And a lot of seniors here, really, they have the money to do it. And they would just go ahead and vote for it, presuming it's something that we need. Now, I went to the Rockport Fulton High School graduation this year. So my neighbor was graduating. She got the most award and the most scholarships. And so I listened to all the kids that were going off to college. About 2 or 3 were going to Del Mar, and she was one of them. She's going to Del Mar she wants to be a chef. So she's going to culinary school. And I think that's fine, but we don't need that here, right? She would have to go to Del Mar in Nueces County to pursue a degree in culinary. They have not shown you any solid class list that's going to bring in the kind of revenue they need to operate this facility, much less the kind of revenue they need to renovate this facility. I recommend that you go back to the EDA and ask them if you can change the scope on this project. We don't need Del Mar. I had 4 kids graduate here. They didn't want to go to college in Del Mar. They pursued college other places, okay, 4-year colleges. And your high school students don't want it either. So Del Mar's getting more money for high school. They need to do that at the high school where we already own those facilities and pay taxes on those facilities. That's that. But we do need medical. We do need medical offices. We had a proposal to bring Amistad in here, not a hospital, right? We don't need a hospital. We don't need another taxing entity, but we do need Amistad here. And you have indigent health funds. You have some opiate settlement funds, and Del Mar could fulfill that need. So I don't know how to do it. I have no idea, but you've got a piece of property you're stuck with, and you know that you can't afford it, but do something else with it instead of backing us into a taxing district for a junior college that we don't need. Your population is averaging around 55 years old. I'm not going to Del Mar College. I'm 56. My kids didn't go to Del Mar College. Your high school kids aren't generally going to Del Mar College. So unless they can bring you back a solid proposal based on real numbers for attendance, based on real costs for real classes that they would offer here, you have a responsibility to protect us.
Time's up. Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rutledge. All right, so this is the day. I had a meeting last week and Lenore Keys says that they are still interested. that Regents have a meeting, I believe, on September 12th. And if we vote today to let them take over the grant, they're going to vote on the 12th to accept it. So I mean, it's not a sure done deal that they're going to accept it. I haven't met with any regents, but y'all have any questions?
I am not sure if we have an answer available for this, but as Ms. Rutledge mentioned, Amistad was very interested in that property. They were very interested in coming over here and setting up a federally qualified health center. Is there some way that the EDA grant could be transferred over to Amistad? Because they really were excited about that building.
Commissioner, I think that Karen is probably on Zoom from GrantWorks, and she can probably speak to this too, but I would say that we've had to amend the project for this grant already, and the timeline is ticking down on how long the grant funds will be available.
Okay.
So we are pretty limited. Our options right now that we've discussed and I believe are reasonable and could happen would be one, to transfer the grant, including the building and all the responsibilities and grant assurances, to Del Mar College to continue with this project of the Workforce Development Center. Another option would be to ask the EDA for permission to liquidate the asset and repay our grant funds that we have received back to the EDA. That is not a very good option for us for various reasons. One of them being that backing out of a grant this far into the process sure doesn't look good on us for future grant applications that we may want to submit. We want to be able to show that we didn't accept something that we didn't have a good faith belief we would follow through with. So to me, that's not a very good option. That would be the only way the building would be able to be used for anything else absent the EDA's permission. And I think, Karen, if you wouldn't mind just talking about what you think about the likelihood of the EDA allowing another revision.
Yeah, hi. My take on that is, well, first we would have to go back to them and ask. And that will take another bit of time. But my take on it would be, that's not what you applied for. You know, the relationship with the medical facility or whatever might be done there, the Amistad, that was not the competitive basis on which you submitted that application. So I don't know what the EDA's response would be, but that would be something to take heavily into consideration, is that you won the grant with the idea for the Workforce Development Center. EDA might come back and say, well, that's what you applied for, that's what we scored, and that's what we want to see happen. I don't know what their response would be to the Amistad idea, so we'd have to go back and ask.
Karen, can you remind us what the deadlines are for using the grant funds?
We need to give EDA an answer, or if you're going to terminate the grant for convenience, it must be done by August 2025. If the grant proceeds, the grant holder must complete all objectives by August 2026.
And if we transfer the grant to Del Mar would be responsible for ensuring that the program is up and running by August of 2026. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And Aransas County would have no obligations with regard to the grant and ensuring that all of the requirements are met if the entire grant is transferred. Isn't that correct?
That is also correct.
Okay, thank you.
They would be responsible for all objectives and also seeking an extension if that's what they needed to do. And the county would be out of it.
Thank you.
Karen, oh, I'm sorry. Karen, if we liquidate it and there's a profit, do we keep the profit or does that have to be paid back to the EDA?
That has to be returned to the EDA.
Okay, thank you.
So if we ask the EDA for another use to be approved for that building, what do you anticipate the turnaround time would be to get that response?
If the answer is no, it would probably be pretty fast. I'd expect that answer. the EDA is paying attention to this grant right now, so I would anticipate you'd get it within a week or two.
Get it within a week or two? Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Karen, would you recommend that we ask for a revision? And if so, how have you seen that process play out when it's different than what we put on our application?
I would have to say that I don't have any experience asking for revisions to the EDA grants, and especially not one of that magnitude. With all of the federal, with the federally competitive grants that we manage, the scoring is based on what was originally proposed. It is never easy or welcome to change the fundamental basis of an application for a competitive program. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you have to sort of have an argument that you cannot complete it as proposed. Not that you just want to do something else.
Over the past several years, we've had multiple medical companies that have talked about coming in here. Every one of them, including Amistad, wanted a subsidy for coming in here. And most of them wanted all of our healthcare sales tax money plus. And so I don't, I've sat in on talks with Amistad and I didn't get any feeling that they didn't want, I don't really believe they want the building unless we would pay for the expenses of it. And I don't think they're gonna take the building and redo it.
No.
I don't think they own a building in any other facility. They just have one that they either get reduced rent or some type of subsidy from the local government.
My understanding on with Amistad also was that we would still be the landlord and they would want the building renovated to their use. I mean, it would
Yeah.
still all be our responsibility.
They wanted us to buy the x-ray machines and everything.
I wouldn't know about the equipment. I don't know
We've,
that, but I do know that they did not want to own the building and we would still end up being a landlord.
Jackie, what's our premium on our insurance costs on that building? Do you remember?
Right off the top of my head, no, sir, I don't. But it was like 30-something thousand, but we did reduce the value of it because it was very overstated on the value. Off the top of my head, no, sir, I don't know exactly what that one is.
If we don't transfer it, we're gonna have to
Well,
add that to our budget then
Well, yeah,
for next
exactly.
year. There are recurring, as long as we hold it, there are recurring costs. I mean, we're maintaining it. Insurance, vandalism. When I took this office, my thing was, I want the county to get out of it. I think letting Del Mar take it over is getting it out of our hands, letting them take it over. And as far as a taxing entity backdoor, people could get together right now and ask for a vote. You don't need a building to get into their taxing entity. And I'm pretty sure that we'll have a lot of opposition to that. And I don't think they'd want to go somewhere where they're not wanted as far as taxing.
I just want to remind the court that any voting for the taxing district would have to be voter driven and that Del Mar cannot be involved in such an election or act as a proponent of such measure. So it would have to be proposed and driven by Rockport residents or Aransas County residents for that to happen.
I think there's more value in trying to give an opportunity to have education for our citizens in this committee. I know there's not a big majority of kids that go to Del Mar, but I know every year there are kids that are going to Del Mar and taking advantage of it.
Yep.
And I think with this being a workforce center type thing that it brings a lot of possibilities because not every kid needs to go to college or wants to go to college. And this is an opportunity for them. And as far as Del Mar being a taxing entity, that's always going to be there hanging out that they could come into our area. But I think the value this center could bring outweighs our concerns about when and if someday Del Mar might create a taxing entity.
Well, it's my opinion that we've kicked this horse down the road for a long time and Del Mar is the only one that's come to us as consistently as what we would like. I think that, one of the reasons that kids don't go to college as much as they, as many in the class as what there are, I think has a lot to do with the fact they can't afford it. And if you're going to go to college and need some help, Del Mar is the way to go. And so I'm in favor of it. I'm ready to call for the motion. I would like to make a motion to approve and
We already
consider.
did.
We have the
We already have a
motion
motion
already.
on the floor.
Oh, okay. Well, I call for the question.
All right.
Do we have to
Commissioner
vote
Chaney?
on he's calling for the question? Because I have an issue that wasn't addressed. So we vote on the question first before I can ask my issue?
That is up to the court. We don't have to go strictly by Robert's rules. It is by the court's rules, and I don't believe that is addressed, that specific question is addressed in your procedural rules that have been adopted. So I think it would be up to the commissioners on the dais today to decide whether it's time to call the question or to allow additional comment.
If there's still additional comment to be said, I'd like to hear it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a concern if this is passed, because the comment was made at another discussion, another workshop, when we just talked about this possibility, that we might need to look at repaying those who made pledges and donations. And I want to be absolutely sure we are not putting the county on the line for about $250,000 in potential repayments to people who funded this. If they funded the Workforce Development Center with pledges and donations, and we're giving it to Del Mar to see that project through to completion, then we have not reneged on what the proposal was under which those donations and pledges were made. So I feel very strongly about that.
So Jackie, do we still have those funds in hand?
Most of those funds were used for the match when we purchased the building. I believe Karen has worked up something and we've got about $100,000 left. And that would be transferred over to Del Mar if this went through with Del Mar as a pledge.
All right. If there are no further comments, let's go and vote.
Commissioner Chaney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castelline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Nay.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye, passes 4-1. Item number 10.
I think it's 11.
Oh, 11, sorry.
I move to approve resolution number R-23-2023. A resolution of the Aransas County Commissioners Court authorizing county staff to complete and submit an application to the Juvenile Justice and Truancy Prevention Grant Program to the Officer of the Governor and designating the county judge as the county's authorized official for this grant.
I'll second that.
Got a motion, got a second. Do we have any questions for Judge McGinnis?
Yes, for either Judge McGinnis or for Laura. So first question, have we done this before? And if we have, what was our outcome?
We have not done.
So it's first time? Okay. And in the resolution, it talks about, well, not the resolution, sorry, in the funding announcement, it talks about the final date to submit and certify an application is February 9th, 2023. Are we too late?
Commissioner, I pulled that data or the grant announcement off, and I did also notice the date discrepancy. But I think Judge McGinnis received information about this grant directly from, I'm sorry? Yeah, from COG. And I think that there may have been a scrivener's error on the grant announcement itself, but they are not too late to apply.
On the heading of the paperwork, it does say for the year 2024.
Right.
So
I was just concerned because this
Yeah.
is the document that I guess the governor's office
Yeah.
sent out.
Yeah, and I saw it says September 1st, also 2023, and I was thinking maybe that's the putting the applications in.
What says the project start date?
September 1st. Okay. Okay.
All right.
So it'll be effective September 1st. Okay. What is this? How will we use this?
It's gonna be for the LCDC, for the employment of her.
Okay.
We're going to hire one?
We have one that we hired through the JCM. So we're gonna kind of combine the two to utilize both. Because the funding was not there for the LCDC through the government's grant.
What's LCDT?
License chemical
Dependency.
Oh, okay.
Drug counselor.
All right, there are no further questions. Let's go and vote.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye, passes 5-0. Item number 12.
I move to approve authorizing county judge to submit to the Texas Department of Information Resources the required electronic document to certify Aransas County's compliance with Texas Government Code 2054.5191, which mandates the county personnel complete an annual state certified cybersecurity training course.
I'll second that.
Got a motion, got a second. We got Colin Jackson to speak on that.
Sure. If y'all have any questions, we did submit a list of all the employees as well as anyone who touches our computer systems. Everybody up to this date is complete on the training, so that's required and covered under the statutes.
So if they don't use a computer for more than 25% of their job function, they don't need to take this?
Correct.
Okay.
And we do tend to push the bar because we want everybody who touches our computers, email especially, to take it. But there are folks that their job simply does not require them to be on the computer more than maybe once a month, if that. And so those folks, we didn't really push for this go around because it wasn't practical to get them in front of a computer.
Okay.
And the appraisal district I noticed is under us also?
They are for the purposes of this, as they share a system with the tax office.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye, passes 5-0. Item number 13.
I move to discuss the gate access agreement between Aransas County and Another Chance RFT dated July 26, 2021, and the ground lease agreement between Aransas County and Another Chance RFT dated June 14th, 2021, related to county's animal care facility located at 872 Airport Road. And we're just discussing this, not taking action?
Correct. Second,
Got a motion, got a second to discuss.
I asked to place this on the agenda because I've had different members of the community contact me over the last few months concerning our agreement with Another Chance and the conditions over there. And I've also had some questions concerning the formal contract agreement between Aransas County and Another Chance. I think it's important that all the citizens have an understanding concerning that relationship since it affects our budget. And, you know, we just actually added to our budget to help with the situation over there. And I respect what Another Chance does, and I really appreciate their efforts and their leadership and all this volunteer work they put into the facility. I'm kind of concerned, though, that this is gonna grow in some ways and maybe lead to a conflict in the future, because we have two different missions in a way. Another Chance's stated goal is to become a no-kill shelter, which I think that's very admirable and something that is workable. The county, on the other hand, really, we have a duty to protect the public by removing and keeping dangerous and unrestrained animals and also just strays until a resolution can be reached. I think that can place an additional burden on county taxpayers. And that's something we need to consider. I think we need to work toward an agreement where ideally another chance, and it may not be another chance, but some nonprofit entity could take that, our shelter, and become a no-kill shelter, and the county work some responsibility or some agreement with them where we could basically fulfill our duties and not have a cross in there. I know one of the things that's concerned me, and I've had people, actually had someone contact me about this Friday, is as that grows, we have more upkeep as far as dogs, different things, need more personnel inside. I think we're really all adding another position maybe due to some of the growth there. And how big can the shelter get? I mean, how, as far as our part, how much can the county put to it, to keep it functioning the way it needs to be? So I think we need to work at some kind of maybe look toward an agreement that will meet needs of both parties. I do have some questions concerning the agreement, and I guess Lori, being you're here, would you mind?
Commissioner, before you have Lori speak, would you like me to give a short summary of the two agreements and what the terms
I
are?
would like that.
Okay. The ground lease was entered into on June 14th, 2021 for a term of 5 years with an automatic 5-year renewal unless either party gives notice within 60 days of that renewal date of their intent not to renew. It is for a piece of property that's located directly under a 10 by 10 portable building. In exchange for another chance, paying for insurance for its contents and agreeing to remove or donate the building if the term ends, and to continue to work closely with Aransas County Animal Control to provide necessary services to needy animals. The county pays for insurance coverage for the shelter structure, the building structure and utilities, and leases the space to another chance. The gate access agreement came pretty quickly after the ground lease because of the need of another chance to have volunteers on property outside of business hours. That agreement was executed on June 30th, 2022. I believe that's wrong. June 20th, 2021. I apologize. It was effective through June 30th of this year, but it does automatically renew for additional 1-year terms so long as neither party provides notice of their intent to terminate. So it did just renew this year on July the 1st. The consideration for this agreement is that the county provides gate access to 2 authorized and identified designated representatives of Another Chance. And Another Chance promises to continue to work closely with the county to provide necessary services to dogs in need. Additionally, Another Chance is responsible for ensuring the gate is secure after entering the property and when leaving the property. And the access may be immediately terminated if there's a failure to secure the gate. Another Chance must also notify the Director of Animal Care and the county judge in writing and provide the full name and phone number of the 2 designated representatives to update or replace those designated on the original document. And that's the general contents of both agreements.
Thank you. First question is, does cattails fit under the umbrella of Another Chance? How does that work? Because they're not mentioned in the contract. I know we're also fostering cats.
We house cats.
We house cats.
That would
And what
fit
does
cattails.
cattails, how do they fit into this?
Cattails is not in any way associated with Another Chance. They are 2 separate, not-for-profit entities. Cattails works with cats, Another Chance RFT works with dogs.
Do we have a written agreement with cattails also?
We do not.
And the other thing that the contract mentions a 10 by 10 building, but they actually go into our main facility all the time, correct?
During, when I have a kennel tech available on the weekends and during the week when staffing is there, I believe that our agreement was that there had to be a county employee there on site to
Okay,
be entered,
okay.
to be allowed.
And that's,
except for walking of the heartworm dogs, and that's where they're in that building where the gate access came into play, that they could walk those dogs and then
when you say that building, are you talking about 10 by 10 or
the
the,
10 by 10, yes,
okay.
access to the 10 by 10.
And that kind of answering one of my questions, what kind of safety protocols are in place for them entering the facility after hours? For the volunteers entering after hours? Is that basically having a kennel tech present?
We don't have a kennel tech present for the heartworm house per se. I don't have a staffing available for their access to the heartworm house.
I think that we have to be more specific because the property in general includes the fenced-in area in addition to the animal care facility, the building itself. And Commissioner Zupnik, I believe, was asking if we have somebody present anytime and other chances within those areas. And the answer is no. That if we don't have staffing within the animal care building, then another chance does have permission under these agreements to be present within the fenced area and its own 10 by 10 building when we do not have staff present.
Okay. Okay, because I understood that they were actually coming to our main building after hours, but that's not the case.
We changed the locks on several doors. It did happen before.
Okay, okay. And do all the volunteers sign an agreement? Because I know we're supposed to be indemnified and held harmless for any potential injuries. Do the volunteers all sign an agreement to come into the facility as the contract states?
No,
The agreement, I will say no. Right now, no. I have a lot of other volunteers not associated with Another Chance that have filled out the applications. I have a file of those. Though that particular entity, no,
Do we have security camera there,
yes,
after hours?
yes, I do.
Okay, so we could identify anybody that comes in.
Yes, I can. And I can see from my home as well, as I double check on my kennel tech in the morning to make sure it's all clear for before she goes in or he or she go in. For safety, to make sure that nothing is awry that I'm not aware of, I check it out quite a bit. And after hours, if somebody's called me, hey, I'm gonna go up, I have this dog I picked up, kind of double check to make sure that they're okay
Okay.
and leave okay, just in case.
Couple of questions I had. I've had several people contact me about the donations we list on our consent agenda. And saying, well, why they shouldn't have to support the county that much, but actually those donations are used to take care of the animals that Another Chance is fostering. Is that correct? Or are they used for the county also?
The donations that I receive, the monetary,
The ones from Another Chance we have listed every month.
those are. They're kind of convoluted. I mean, part of it may be their foster program. I don't know. You know, it's not. When I was reading and poop bags is on there. I don't know where that fits in.
I think those expenses, and if I'd known you were going into this detail, we could have asked Ton and Neil to be here.
Well, I did,
But-
did offer that or ask that someone be here, but evidently didn't get.
Those are supplies, those are shots, those are surgeries that Another Chance provides to animals that either would be at the animal control facility or have been at the animal control facility, but they are in foster
Okay,
services.
That's what so basically they're foster animals as a
Yes.
rule. That's what I wanted to clear up, let people, I was telling that to people, I think that's the case, that most of those are
I believe that's correct.
as a rule. But like you said, it's not a clear cut.
That seems kind of deceptive to me, that the money is really not spent on animal control property,
That's-
but to list that it's being donated to us. It just doesn't seem like a proper way to do
Well,
it.
we'll ask Tana to come to the next court and let her explain it more thoroughly.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Just remember, I won't be at the next court.
And I guess my last one was, what's the protocol in place? I know we've had, I'm gonna say, issues with the shelter being full. What's the protocol in place for animal control officers when they receive calls for animals that need to be restrained or taken back to the shelter.
We pick up as best we can and juggle for space. We are at a point. I don't, as much as I don't want to do things, there's some dogs that I'm not sure that we should rehome. And so they take space. And so we double up, we jockey around, move around. I mean, it's a constant
If we have,
movement.
if we have animals that we don't think should be put out and everything, what is other than the fact that of the death issue? What keeps them from being put down in a reasonable length of time? I mean, if we've got, if you got one animal that is not going to be able to be replaced or is sick or something like that, it goes past the time to keep them to do it. Why aren't we putting them down? We've got to have that space. So we're either, I had 2 bulldogs chase my 11-year-old daughter on Saturday. Okay, we called the sheriff's office. I never saw an animal control officer out, but it was on the weekend and I understood that. But we brought her in and the dog still ran around. Okay. Those dogs are healthy. They would probably be claimed, everything, but they chased my daughter.
Yes.
And I don't care whether my daughter, your daughter, somebody else's
Yes.
son or whatever. Those dogs need to be picked up and they need to be brought into. And if nobody picks them up or claims them or reclaims them, and they go past the time that we're authorized to euthanize them, they need to go down.
Yes.
And it's not just because they chased my daughter, but we've recently had a death. And
Public
have-
safety, yes.
I put in several applications or several requests out in my precinct, and I know everybody here has. And we're talking about space and we're talking about animals that can't be put down, or that are not being put down that probably wouldn't any other shelter be put
Yes.
down.
Yes.
Well, let's start following our policy and do the best that you can. I realize that you're one person.
No, the issue is not that. The issue is more the pressure. The no-kill pressure is,
Somebody, if that dog had a bitten my,
I
but not, I
understand
would,
that, and each time that I go to, I'm met with resistance.
this
and
is
that I
this
can't
is your
do
resistance here.
this.
This is who you work for.
I understand that, but I think there needs to be clear boundaries between the
agree.
501
I
and
would,
the county.
I would
That's
think too, that this court needs to review the policies.
I agree.
Especially in concern with the time limit that's set. And like say, if you don't believe a dog should be rehomed because it might be a safety issue, whatever other issues that you want, because am I right that the current time that a dog can stay there without even be considered as 6 months? That seems like a long
That
time.
seems to
Does.
be the trend.
That seems like a long time to me.
It does to me as well.
Yeah.
See what the.
We are reviewing
Yeah.
and they'll be presented to Commissioners Court here
And
in the near future.
okay, thank you. And I appreciate the job you're doing and apologize, to put you on the spot like we are. But I think we need to have this,
Good job.
I think we need to have this discussion though, because I mean, I really appreciate with another chance is doing, that's very important. Goal is very noble, but by the same token, I want to make sure that as a county, we fulfill our duties and responsibilities. And like you said, like mentioned, you report to Commissioner's Court, not to another chance, but when you have I'm gonna say the contract really allows a lot of muddling in there, has a lot of muddling in it. When it gets down to actual real life situation, we just need to have some kind of agreement that lets everybody fulfill their needs.
I believe so.
Thank you.
I would mention that recently I attended the Chamber of Commerce Legislative Update Luncheon for Todd Hunter. There was a gentleman there who has recently moved to our area, who was with the Kennel Club of America. I sent his information both to Tana Neal with Another Chance and to Jen Osteen with our county attorney's office, because he offered to help with adoptions. He offered to help with rewriting our ordinance. He had recently worked on 4 pieces of legislation for Representative Hunter's office that were considered by the state legislature this last session. And I think we really need to get with Mr. Hupp and see if he can help clear up this issue. Because he has experience, he has knowledge, and he has the expertise to do this. I'm not sure, as much as I care about animals, that I could help write better ordinances. So I suggest we do that.
Well, you,
Judge, if I
you,
may,
you need to have somebody that can have an open mind.
Mhm.
I hate to say it, but I think the current committee that we have is pretty lopsided. I don't think there's, I think they're all no-kill oriented. And I don't know how you can solve the conflict like that.
You know, no kill to me is a myth. There is no such an animal. Even when I was on the rescue side, you had to make choices. If something is so sick, you still euthanize it. Either way, you had to make that choice. There really isn't such a thing because, I mean, dead is dead. Either way, on the rescue side or over here when you have to make that choice. I don't think it's a real thing. I think there are other names you could be. There's smart out there that's being selective on who you adopt and who you release. There's different ways to classify your shelter, different names other than be a no kill, because that's just not.
I was just going to say, Lori had visited with me last week about some issues that she's had with some of the adopted dogs and stuff. And I feel like this might be a good time for her to visit with y'all about some of the issues that she's seen on that side also. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Lori, but
Well, is that allowed under this particular agenda item, or do we need to come back with a specific agenda item?
I think that because the agreements that we are discussing include consideration that is another chance providing services to animals. And I believe that what Lori was possibly going to speak to was an animal that was adopted. Another chance was involved and there was an incident that I think she wanted to share with you. So I do believe it is related to these contracts.
Okay.
But we are straying a little close to the edge. So we do need to try to stay on topic.
We had a beautiful German Shepherd. A lot of you saw Sosa. You saw Sosa. I was a little skeptical. I'm not a big German Shepherd fan. I will say that straight up. Not my favorite dog. He did good, then he didn't do good. I was on the fence. I said, I really don't want him to be adopted. I just don't feel comfortable. Well, there was a push with the rescue to get him adopted, and they found an adopter. She came down, met with him, was great, stayed 2 days, took him out, met with him, did that. We did a foster type to adopt type situation to give it a try in the home. A month later, when the adoption was finalized, same day that she paid, he was sitting below her on the recliner. She went to get up and had done it 100 times, stepped over him. That day, he reared up and he grabbed hold of her arm. She could not get him to release. She finally had to get hold. He had a shock collar on with a vibration and also shock. She shocked him enough till she could get him off. She then chose to take him to the vet. They chose to euthanize him because they couldn't predict when he was going to do this. And I wasn't made aware for quite some time until I reached out to her that I hadn't seen any pictures. She's my Facebook friend. And she told me what had happened. And I believe with my education, and I've been involved in the animal world for 40 years. If I think that this is not a good, it's just not right. Something is telling me they're not good to go. I think I should be able to have that safety feature in place. I'm sorry they have to be euthanized. I am. But in this case, it was a month later. If it had been her grandson, I don't know if I would be here right now.
Mhm.
Because I didn't believe it was a good adoption and I was pushed to let him go. So,
Well,
yes,
again, you have the support of this court to make good decisions based on your knowledge and your experience and everything. Whether it's a good decision or a bad decision, you are at the tip of the thing, just right underneath the judge. You report to the judge and then to the court. And I don't think there's a member on the board here at all that would have faulted you for doing that, you know, for not releasing that animal. But if you chose not to release it, what are you gonna do?
I know,
You're gonna have to put him down.
there aren't options.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well-
it is all in our policy and procedures as well.
And
Talks about behavior, talks about all of those things that I look at when I'm looking at them. You know, to make that choice. I don't want this to happen again. I don't. Because this was a smaller outcome. It may not be that way next time. And I know I don't like what if. I hate that. What if it bites this person? What if it, I don't like that. But if I see that potential there, that's pretty not a what if, it's a when.
Yeah.
When is it gonna happen?
mhm,
And how severe is it gonna be?
yeah, we've
Lori,
already seen how severe. it can
I
be.
would say, and I didn't know about this circumstance until right now. And I'm not doubting what happened, but I have not really noticed that you are reluctant to have a strong opinion and a strong voice. And if the protocol, if the procedures, if the ordinance, whatever, until we change them, and I certainly hope we're looking at them and we get some professional guidance to do that
Yes.
soon. If it calls for a dog to be put down, the dog needs to be put down. And if there is a lot of pushback about that decision, you report to the judge.
Yes.
And I don't think he would tell you not to call him because you were facing an issue that you felt perhaps you needed to go to your boss.
Yes.
So the fact that this happened is very unfortunate. I mean, I love dogs. I have 3 rescue dogs myself, but I understand sometimes dogs are not adoptable and I wouldn't want them in my home. But you are the director of that entity and you are the one who has the option to make that call.
Yes.
And I don't think there's anybody on this court that would fault you for making a decision. But we've got to give you the policies and the procedures by which to do that. You know, we don't want you hanging out to dry.
Well, I think there needs to be clear boundaries between the two.
Yeah, and that brings up another thing with the rescue, is if they get involved with us in a situation like that, and the people decide to sue something, who they're gonna sue? They're gonna sue the county, because the county's got deep pockets. You know, and that's just stuff that I'm just not comfortable with them. Yeah, just not comfortable. But that's just my personal opinion.
All right,
Is that it?
all right. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Judge.
Let's go, item number 14.
Move to approve the July 2023 treasurer's report.
I'll
second.
second that. I have a question. Is Patricia still? There you are, Patricia.
Motion got a second?
Mhm.
Miss Patricia?
Let you get up to the microphone.
I'll do my best. I'm not Alma, but I'll do.
No,
my
I
best.
know you're not Hannah.
Tell us who you are. Tell us who you are.
Oh, I'm Patricia Randall. I'm the Chief Deputy Treasurer.
All right.
So under fund name and number, we have a Cedar Bayou restoration that right now has a 0 balance. And we have a waterway restoration that right now has a 3.3 million plus balance. Would you explain to me why we have those 2 accounts?
To be honest,
I want you to be honest.
I can answer that.
I was gonna say, we've had them the whole time I've been here, so I don't know what made them come about.
All right.
The
Thank you.
Cedar Bio is an old account that we do not use anymore. Everything goes under the waterway restoration now, which is the Go Mesa funds, as well as a $250,000 transfer from Hotel Motel for all of our beach and waterway stuff.
And what waterways have we?
We have Cedar Bio. We've helped with the red beds. We did some with the studies and stuff. We've used some funds to help with that.
Right.
We have used some of it for grant matches. I don't know that that's an effluent from the sewer plants. I don't know.
But mostly it's Cedar Bayou.
Well, it's not only Cedar Bio. We do have other grants and stuff that we've used over in Pete's Bend or some of those other places. There's
So like some of the shoreline restoration grants
yes,
where
any
those
of the
are
shoreline
eligible.
restoration
Exactly,
grants.
exactly. We use them as matches. We've also contributed to like Parks and Wildlife grants with the Mesa funds.
Like the Newcomb Bend project, if something like that's.
Yes.
Newcomb Point
Newcomb
project and a couple of other things, yes. So that's our Go Mesa funds.
So the Go Mesa funds are in the waterway restoration.
Yes, ma'am.
Waterway Restoration Fund.
So it's one and the same.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, there's no further question.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Item number 15.
I move to discuss and receive information from the public concerning any budget issues for the 2024 budget year.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we got a second. Ms.
I do
Jackie?
have some information that I wanted to share with y'all. We did give you a changes to the proposed budget. We will actually be voting on these on the 11th, September 11th, but I wanted to just kind of go over them with y'all. Changes that we made since the 21st. Through the judge's direction, we have reduced the ad valorem tax rate to last year's rate of 0.35841 per 100 in evaluation. We've decreased the emergency management travel and meals by $1,000. We decreased 2 line items in non-departmental budget that actually netted out to 16,100. Those changes were we increased the auditing services because this auditing firm the cost has gone up since we started with Mr. Byer, as well as we reduced the contingency fund, which we reduced that by $25,000 to $75,000. This line item actually covers the cost to move from this building over to the new courthouse, as well as just a contingency, but we have reduced it to where that's what the cost is right now in here. What the funds are is for us to move when the courthouse is ready. We decreased the IT budget. That's in miscellaneous and professional services. Both had a decrease. We decreased the district court's budget for attorney's fees by $20,000. This is the indigent fees that we pay when we have inmates or people that need services or indigent services. We do have a grant that we get reimbursed, but it's only about $30,000 a year that we receive on that grant.
So the attorney fees for indigents, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Decrease the HR director salary to actual, the same that we did with all other departments this year. Facilities, we placed additional funds in there, $100,000 for insurance for the new courthouse and $18,000 for utilities. Granted, we know it's going to be more than $18,000, but we had a little surplus in there, so we just increased by what we think that it would cost and what our anticipated costs are on that.
The 100,000 is for the courthouse and for the community building
Yes.
and for anticipated for all the way around, like anticipated insurance premiums
Yes.
going up.
Also, we transferred admin costs from hotel, motel, and venue funds, $40,000 each into general fund to help with those after speaking with the treasurer, with Ms. Cartwright, and with the judge. We decided to do that. as well as we have $240,000. It is in general fund for a transfer to the airport. It's a match on a $2.4 million grant that they are eligible for lighting, for new airfield lighting. We also have the child safety fee that offsets the cost of the sheriff's office working at the schools and stuff. It's $1.50 that's added to your car registration. We have had that money sitting in that fund. We're proposing to transfer that into the general fund to offset our sheriff's office costs. And we will be doing that annually.
Do you know about how much that's going to be?
Right now, this year, because we have not transferred, it's been like the third year, we have about $100,000, a little over $100,000 in there. We also have visited with Kevin with elections. We have our elections contract fund, which is the fund where when we do elections for ISD, the school, all they pay us a portion of the cost of holding that election. Those funds have been in that held in that fund. We're visited with him. There are some expenses that need to come out of there. And so we have agreed that, or Kevin has agreed, we're going to take $112,000. Now, mind you, these are one time. We'll have a little bit in the next few years, but we won't have this large of a transfer again. And that one's going to be $112,000 that will transfer to general fund. We also have talked to Alma Cartwright. We're going to transfer 1.5 million out of indigent health, or the indigent assistance back into the healthcare sales tax fund, as we can only use the money if it's in the indigent for indigent, and we totally have that funded every year. This is a surplus that has been built up with healthcare, it being in healthcare sales tax. We have more flexibility with using the funds. And so we are going to move that back into there. And I don't know of anything else. If there's anything else that y'all have questions on, if there's anything, I would be happy to answer those.
That's it. Go ahead.
So you still have a COLA in it, or is it out of it?
Yes, sir. This does still include the COLA. We did, the salaries were in the paper for the all elected officials. These are with the COLA. Now, if anybody that chose not to take the COLA or the longevity, that will be reflected in the what we set up in your actual, it's just the words that just left me. Just a reminder too, when you're looking at all of this information and you're looking at your spreadsheets that we give you for the workshops, that year-to-date column is through July. So we still have 5 months of budget left, even when you look at that year-to-date. So that's one reason it looks like we have a lot of surplus or we've over budgeted, but that's because we do have 5 more months in our fiscal year. We in December, as you know.
And it's not linear. For the most part, the expenses are not linear.
No.
You get more at the end of the year than you do maybe in the middle, or vice versa.
Ideally, we would love to be able to have a 12th, the 12th, and 12th, but it doesn't happen that way.
Whenever you're figuring your indigent, okay, do you take any kind of I know that you keep records of the amount of indigents that we paid each year. Do y'all ever project like what the trend is for increasing, because indigent always increases?
Are you speaking about the attorneys or the indigent care that we do out of?
Well, both of them really, because it should trend.
With the indigent care, we are required to use 8% of our
Right.
levy. And so what you see is where we're looking at it, but we still budget that 8% and do a
Right.
transfer for it because that's what we're required to do.
And at the end of the budget year, okay, that indigent, any balance we have left, and there are, I'm not real sure, been on the court for a long time, but I never have understood indigent healthcare. But do we have money to carry over? Or we just, what do we do? Is that a cost that's paid once it's accrued rather than budgeted?
Yes.
Okay.
We
And
do
what
the transfer as it is budgeted, but the expense itself is only as we occur them.
Okay,
Yes,
so it's not a question of whether or not we have enough in there most of the time, because we do
no,
what
no,
we're
there's
required.
no question.
We don't carry any over either.
We have been carrying it over, and that's why we're going to make this transfer back into healthcare sales tax so that we can utilize those funds.
Okay.
Because we do not use tax money or property tax money to fund the indigent. We use our
Right.
healthcare sales
So,
tax to
yeah.
fund the indigent.
Okay,
So we move it back over. They're both special revenue funds, so they stay just within those two funds. And as far as the attorneys, I mean, you can see the trends that we've had with the last 5 or 6 years that are on your worksheets.
right.
And it's continuing to go up. And the more trials they have, the more fees that we have.
Before we go, I'm sorry, Christy, I know you want to speak on this item.
Thank you, Judge Garza, and Commissioners Christy Rutledge, 1411 Dana Drive. It's probably good that I got to hear this before I got to speak. So I'm really glad to hear that you all have taken another serious look. You've increased your revenues in some areas and you've made some cuts in some areas. I want to clarify a couple of things in my last couple of public comments. When I made recommendations to the court last week regarding possible areas to cut the budget, unspent line items, I did so based on 6 months of, and you're saying the budget's done at 7 months. So I think the information that I gave you was even less than what could be cut. So I think you've done some really good work and I want to thank you for that. But I want to add a couple of other things. Because it's kind of serious when you talk about almost a 27% increase in taxes on your homesteads. That's me. And I've got 9 years before I hit that magic 65 age, where things are a little bit frozen in some areas. All right. And so it's getting serious. And this is a big ask. I don't know what all these changes net to as far as reducing the tax increment. So I can only speak to what I know. I will say that I'd like for you to consider taking another look at your revenues as far as sales tax and property tax. Because at this point, as of August the 24th, the property tax should have a little bit, the assessor should have a little bit of a better idea of what the real number is going to be. And since that tax rate calculation worksheet was done based on the lowest possible appraisals coming in, we know that the appraiser's winning his side and getting higher values. He's expected to than the lowest. So I'd like for you to see if you can increase the amount on your line item for property tax. And as far as sales tax, you're trending to break even this year, and every year prior, you've increased. So there's no need to have a variance, a negative variance on your sales tax line. So please consider eliminating that and at least having the sales tax revenues at level for 2023. I think that is prudent and I think you'll do in good shape. Regarding a one particular budget, I just want to mention a few things. And again, you all know I'm not picking at you. There's on your hot funds, you know that I think there's some opportunity with your venues at the airport. You have a venue there for the air shows. You're funding that for advertisement this year, but that is a county-owned facility. You have the option to fund a portion of your admin, your repairs, your maintenance to put those shows on. And I think you did 2 last year. So that's an opportunity there for you to move some funds around. And so keep looking for those opportunities. As far as your sales tax fund, if that could help with Amistad funding that building, that's a really good use. So please look at that and consider that. I know that you just voted to hand the property, or you're going to over to Del Mar, but they don't have a sustainable budget. And I don't see that going too long before they drum up support from the EDC to get a junior college tax there. Regarding the sheriff's budget, I just want to point out a couple of items. It looks as if we've got the capital improvement area. It looks like they're budgeting for everything to break every year. And why don't we move some of this year's budget over into a reserve for them so they don't have to budget for that every year and then not spend the money? Because it's a considerable amount. Small equipment, we're budgeting $60,000, but we're trending $7,800. That difference needs to be put into a reserve for them. And we don't need to get taxed every year as if every single piece of small equipment is going to break. It's not a defund of the sheriff. It's actually just stopping to tax us, overtax us on something that we don't need to be overtaxed on. Same thing, he's got 3 lines there: radio equipment, machinery and equipment. Maybe consider just setting up a reserve for that and don't tax us for stuff we don't need to pay for every year. We've got building repairs and maintenance. That this line item is $72,000. It's proposed for $50,000 next year, but we're only spending $800 there. That is just excessive. That's an unnecessary tax. So please take a look at what else you can do there. And again, it's just prudent to consider zeroing out or reducing line items you don't need. Thank you.
I would also like to, thank you, Christy,
you.
for reminding me
Thank you.
that we did zero out our sales tax. We did increase that revenue to where it is zero. I do not feel like we can do an increase on it. If you look at the trends, it's starting to level off, and I've been watching it this year, and in my report, we're actually running about 2 or 3% behind what we anticipated. So I think that we had a really, really good 5 years with the rebuild for Harvey and stuff, but we're seeing that kind of level off now. And I really don't feel comfortable predicting a big increase in sales tax this year. You know, we'll watch it next year. We may see that it levels off and that we do have an increase, but I feel like we need to be conservative this year on it.
Can we hear the sheriff speak toward the comments about his budget?
I was gonna mention real quick too, about a month into office, I realized that, we're in last year's budget, we're in a $3 million deficit. So I had asked department heads and elected officials to try to save 10% of your budgets. And so if there's a lot of unspent items, it's because they're trying to save 10% of their budget. And they're actually, trying to do without kicking the can down the road, basically is what we're doing. But Sheriff?
Okay, I'll speak to a few of those items. First off, that $60,000 in equipment was an item last year that we brought to the court. We were trying to buy the automated ticket writers where we could catch the statistics daily and all through the year, and we didn't have to hand count tickets. We're one of the few agencies, probably within 60 miles, that are still handwriting tickets and counting them that way. We could not get a contract resolved with Odyssey and Tyler Technologies that would satisfy Army's needs and protection. And it went back to the general fund last year, and we're trying again this year. And that's what that 60,000 is for. It's not it's an effort that failed last year, and we're still trying to do that. That's why it is up from the 7,000 or 7,500 that we typically had in there. It was an identified project that we could not bring to fruition. The vehicles is a 3-year plan that we're in year 3 going next year. We replaced 18 vehicles at one time following Harvey. And usually we did 3 and 4 in a year. We could not come back around and ask you when those broke to replace 18. So 2 years ago, we started the project of doing 6 a year. Next year would have been the 3rd year in that endeavor. And we're still on track to try to do that and then scale it back down after we've worked those 18 vehicles out. The item for the building maintenance is actually a deal that Renee Butler oversees. And I'm sure that, there's probably stuff in the pipeline. I don't know what's been spent, what's still out there to be paid in the way of invoices. But I know there's been discussion on the court, and this has gone back and forth over the 15 years. It used to be in the sheriff's office, and then we moved it under building maintenance to where they were the ones actually overseeing the work and the operation and the bills. And much like we've done with IT, we've moved funds back and forth, and I don't know where that actually would stand right now, but we don't budget for everything to break every year. But if you look at the vehicle repairs, vehicle maintenance line, because we're running vehicles we bought a bunch of vehicles, the 18 that came in, they were a good deal at the time. It met our need, but we're on track to run $44,000 in vehicle maintenance repairs against a $30,000 budget. We're going to miss that this year. And so if we're going to push out next year's purchase of vehicles and we're not going to do 6, we're going to need to increase that 30, which we didn't do because we're going to have a higher maintenance going forward. We don't budget for everything to break every year, but we're trying to get out of the cycle of Harvey recovery. And the $60,000 was for an identified project. If there's any other questions, I'll entertain those off the top of my head.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I would still like to propose that we have no COLAs in 2024. We've had COLAs over the last 4 to 5 years. I think they have, in summation, been fairly generous, much more than people in the community were receiving. And every time we grant a COLA, that totally changes the salary base from which we begin when we hire new people. I'd like to see us do away with the COLA and just grant that department heads and elected officials may give a 1-step merit increase where it's deserved next year. Thank you.
All right. That was just discussion. Let's move on to item number 16.
Move to approve scheduling the 2023 tax rate public hearings for Tuesday, September the 5th, 2023, and Monday, September the 11th, 2023 at 9 a.m. And the 2024 budget public hearings for Tuesday, September the 5th, 2023, and Monday, September the 11th, 2023 at 9 a.m. or immediately following the 2023 tax rate public hearing on each date.
I'll second that.
Got a motion, got a second. Any discussion?
I would like to speak on this a minute. We are only required to have one public hearing for both of them. And we had those scheduled for September 5th. And looking at the statutes, the statute says that we shall adopt the budget at the end of the public hearing. That is a special meeting. It's not, well, it's a public hearing. It wasn't scheduled for a meeting. So in speaking with Ms. Osteen, we recommended, or she recommended, that we go ahead and have a second hearing on both of them so that we can adopt at the end of the public hearing or at the meeting, on the regular meeting of the 11th. So we're having an additional public hearing for both the tax rate and for the budget, just so that we can make sure that we follow statutes on this and adopt at the end of the public hearing.
I want to add that we discussed that there's no downside to providing additional public hearings and opportunities for the public to weigh in on the decisions you're making. It seems like providing more notice should always be what we strive to do, and err on the side of providing additional opportunities.
Thank you. All right.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye, passes 5-0. Item number 17.
Move to approve budget line item transfers for the 2023 budget.
I'll second it.
We have none at this time.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Item number 18.
I move to approve accounts payable and payroll / payroll liabilities.
Second.
Got a
We
motion?
do, most all of the accounts payable are regular accounts payable. I did want to highlight a few things. We had under the 430 fund, under our capital projects, PGAL has a check for $11,390.83. We've got G&W Engineers who are doing the hazard mitigation grant for generators. They have a check for $9,179. And Gray and Pape, who did some work for us on one of the Lamar Beach Road, is $1,920. And then LCR Transport is working on Loop 1781 road project is $489,064.75.
Jackie, who was that again for the 489,000?
LCR Transport. We also have several items that were paid under our ARPA grant. Co-File received a check, is receiving a check for $149,602.50. This is for the indexing for county clerk. T. Baker Smith, who's the engineer for the water tank for the jail, has an invoice for $250. And Rinker Materials has a check for $22,635.60. This is the part of the drainage for Copano Heights. It's not Copano Heights project itself, but it's some downfall on that we agreed to pay for piping to do this. And those are all that were just the normal ones.
All right, we don't have further questions on vote.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye, passes 5-0. At this time, we'll hear reports from commissioners, elected officials, and department heads.
This
Yeah.
is Misty Kimbrough, County Clerk, and I would like to have a comment. Co-file, that check that Jackie was just speaking of, is finishing the part 1 of our restoration, imaging, and indexing for 1951 back records. It's not everything, but it's a large part of them. It came in $94,000 under budget, which is awesome, which will
Yeah.
help us pay for part 2. And part 2's documents and books will be leaving this week on Thursday to go to Dallas to have the same process done. The only difference with those part 2 is the mold remediation. We don't know the degree or what it's going to cost until the mold remediating experts have them in hand. But with that $94,000 that was under budget, maybe that'll help cover for the rest of it.
And that's the mold that came in the new storage that was supposed to be climate controlled, correct?
Correct. The
Thanks.
air conditioner went out after a storm. I was there on a Friday. I was there the following Tuesday. There was mold growing. By the next morning that had doubled. Renee Butler brought in HEPA filters, dehumidifiers, ionizers, and stopped that mold growth. The mold growth has stopped, but it has not been remediated. We still have yet to have an adjuster or an insurance claim that has been accepted at this time for that incident.
I have been notified by the insurance that they do not intend to. Yes, and this is RPA.
They do not intend to, what did you say?
There's not going to be a claim on it.
Did they give a reason why?
They do not know of any incident that would have caused no, how did they put it? Incident, any, like a storm or something that would have caused this, that it should be the property owner's responsibility. Is what they relayed through GSM.
That is something that we will ask of RPA's legal counsel. We'll ask for an update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
also had something that
Okay.
falls under here. I was contacted by a member of the community who was a longtime volunteer and several years was active on the board of directors for the old aquarium. Very excited to see that we are moving forward on this aquarium. Very, very disappointed that right now the plans do not include a bathroom. He said for the number of years that they were there, that was something that the families who attend and the school groups who attend need to use on a very frequent basis. And the thought that they are going to walk from the aquarium over to the Aquarium Education Center where we do have some computer equipment, some other supplies, and the general public too would be doing this, does not make sense. I agree with that 100%. And before we start construction on the aquarium, I would like us to add a restroom to that facility. Thank you.
If you remember, that was pretty an adamant request from the aquarium people that one not be in.
I have heard that, but I'm not sure that we act at the whim of the aquarium board.
And I
And
agree
they
too,
have
that
not
it's
been
kinda
actively
strange.
involved in that aquarium because that aquarium's been gone now for 6 years.
Aren't we required to have a public restroom in a public building
No.
or a county?
John can speak to that, give his opinion, but the plan that the architects and John and I guess RPA was involved in that too, at the initial planning stages, was that there would be a deck that would connect the two facilities, the education center with the aquarium, and that people would have an accessible route to the deck, would be able to go from one building to the other and have an accessible restroom. My recommendation was that we add a accessible restroom that is a family restroom, male or female, anyone could use it. And that's still my recommendation based on being conservative and trying to make sure we aren't violating any law. Although I'm not going to say that it's illegal not to have a restroom. I believe it would be most conservative to have one.
Okay, okay, is this on?
No, now it's
You
all.
just turned it off.
All right, in the planning of the project, the aquarium committee, aquarium folks chose, because of the space they have available, not to put a bathroom in the actual building and to use the facilities in the education center. From both the city of Rockport's permit review and ADA compliance consultants have said that their plan is fine. It works for them. There's 129 feet from the very furthest corner of the aquarium, new aquarium building, to the bathrooms, and that is well within the rules and the regulations. So everybody at the aquarium folks were great with that proposal. So at this point, that was what the plan is that we would, that there is very little space that you could put a bathroom in. When you put an ADA compliant bathroom into a facility, it's going to take up so much more space that they could use for storage. Now, most people think you're walking down the stairs, you're walking across the parking lot and up the stairs. There is a deck that connects the two buildings together. And so you're walking out the door and you're sliding across the deck, and then you're going right into the aquarium education.
There will be a deck.
There is in the plan, yes, there will be a deck.
It's been funded with a grant.
There's a separate grant that funds that, yes.
Again, I'm just weighing in. I'm sorry, but
Right.
I feel pretty strongly about this one.
I do too.
Just based on accessibility for our citizens and our visitors. And if the weather is poor, if there's heavy wind or rain, going to the exterior to find your way to a restroom would be challenging for anyone, let alone somebody who is in a wheelchair or walking with an assistive device. I personally, as a citizen and as a lawyer, think it's a really good idea to have a restroom, and it's up to the commissioner's court. I'm not saying it's a legal requirement. I did look into the regulations on my own. I don't think that you would be violating the law by not having it. But again, what if that law changes and it's later required? We'll have to add one later. So it kind of makes sense to do it at the outset when we have the option to do that.
So John, can you look into see what it would cost to put one? I mean,
Sure.
the aquarium people were adamant about not having one in the building.
Absolutely.
Maybe you can come up with a way to put one outside the building.
We-
Or
it's
closer than
outside- It's that would, it would be outside of our.
Closer than hundred and
And we're not going
twenty-nine.
back to that. Took a year to get that squared away.
If, what if we covered the walkway? Where they didn't have to get out in the elements that'd be cheaper than putting in a ADA bathroom.
That'd be a big wind issue.
Wind issues would be,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're gonna have those canopies or whatever you have in there.
I'm not talking about canopy, I'm putting a wall out there. I'm not talking
Like
about.
enclosing it to where it's one.
I think that'd be more expensive than
It
the
would be.
bathroom.
You
Yeah.
lose.
I don't think the cost is so much of an issue is that they don't have a lot of space. So they're gonna be tanks and all of the the materials they need to keep the tanks operating properly. So they were
Well, that's right.
concerned
They don't
about
have
if
a
we take
connection.
up, ADA bathroom takes up a fair amount of square footage.
They don't have a-
And so that would be taking away facility, their ability to run the facility.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, look into it, please. Thank you. And then I want to introduce Desiree Upton. She is our new Director of Human Resources. And so everybody sees her face and knows who she is. And she is a Rockport native, I believe.
I am.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, I'm Desiree Upton. I've met many of you. I'm the new HR director and I'm very excited to be here. My door's always going to be open, so please come visit me if I haven't met you or if you want to discuss anything. So,
Would you mind telling us a little about yourself so the public would know your background or?
okay, so I have a business degree, focused on accounting, but I do have HR experience. At my previous job, it was a marine transportation and logistics company, in Ingleside Signet Maritime. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
But we brought in all the big tankers to Enbridge or some to Corpus, Volstopine, just all that area. So that's where I came from. But I wanted to work for the county or city for a long time and I'm here now. So,
We're very fortunate to have you.
Yep.
thank you very
Welcome
much.
aboard. Thank you.
Welcome on
Thank
board.
you.
All right, we'll move on to reports about interests, items of community interest. No action will be taken. Anything? Mike, you got anything? You're good? All right, all right. We don't need to go into closed session, so I will entertain a motion to,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
got a motion, got a second?
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castleline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye, we are.